Hi, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. I've been away for a little bit, but what's new this year, honestly? I'm hoping for some consistency soon, but I need to settle back into things. I'll find my stride again, I'm sure. I've been doing some reading while I've been away, just nothing for review. Got a bit further with Beastars, and there's some Hikaru died. Actually, I finished up to volume 5 of Chainsaw Man, and read a couple more Ito books. I know one of them was Suichi. I can't remember what the other one was off the top of my head. I'll put it on screen now, if I haven't already. I've just not been doing stuff for review, like I said. I've been trying. The book I'm reviewing today was meant to be reviewed and uploaded weeks ago, but my brain has just not been letting me work, and Papa's on antidepressants now, so maybe we can get something going again. Fingers crossed. Anyway, let's get back to business. We're here for book reviews, not my life stories, so let's get on to talking about Gay Werewof by Tony Santorella. First of all, this is going to contain spoilers. This isn't a deep dive. I'm not going chapter by chapter, but I am going in a little further than surface level. Honestly, you're kind of getting my rambling thoughts as I try to piece together how I feel about this book, because honestly, I'm not actually sure. I'll try starting with broad strokes, try and wade in a little bit, warm myself up. Should I start with the positives? I should start with the positives. This is successful at doing what it sets out to do, and does it in a pretty interesting way. It's a good commentary on toxic masculinity, finding yourself a place in the world, and the ways men get targeted to quote unquote improve themselves. It's also incredibly funny. There were many moments that really got me. A lot of that are coming from secondhand embarrassment type stuff. Similar laughs in this as was in Really Good, actually. I think the kind of similar vibes, just touching on different areas. My main issue with it is that it just isn't particularly subtle. I'm not saying I want to have to go searching for stuff to find interest in a book, but a lot of what's being explored is spelled out a little too boldly for me. Maybe some of that is from my pre-man years and having some of these sort of unfortunate instincts gained from girlhood or womanhood, but I do wonder how he sees Brian, our lead, sees Tyler and doesn't immediately go, brother, and just leave. I also know that he has that definitely someone like me feeling, because they have one big thing in common, and I know that that can make you put blinders up, but Brian has doubts and sees the red flags from the start and doesn't listen to them. Though those frustrations are also a major part of seeing someone get indoctrinated, and we are living in an age where so many of our young men are getting roped into horrendous toxic circles. It's, I guess, that boiling frog thing, which is, it turns out more of a metaphor, with the frog is if you put a frog into boiling water, it'll immediately hop out, but if you put it in cool water and warm it up, it won't know that it's boiling until it's dead. Apparently that it isn't actually a thing, but the metaphor stands. You can't immediately throw somebody in the deep end, but you can let them wander through. And like I say, it rarely starts with the worst stuff. It starts with the invitation, finding a community, cult shit. But if I'm totally honest, I think part of the issue with the way the story is told is that Brian, for me, already starts out as not the most likable, and doesn't change too much as we go through, all things considered. When he redeems himself at the end, protecting the friends he had in the first place, it feels more like a big gesture to make up for stuff. And fair enough that they're very quick to forgive the way they behaved, the way he behaved. I think a lot of us would do that for our friends, but it feels like apart from the big gesture is a big one. He does save them from fucking dying, but it's he's only just started trying to do these little things and be like, oh, actually, I did make a mistake. He also owns up to it. Like I said, a lot of this is kind of rambly. because I don't know how I feel about this book. And I think maybe, except Nick, a lot of these people just aren't my types of people, which obviously is going to make a difference with a book. Like, when you're reading a book that's meant to be finding your community, finding your people, you're meant to want to be a part of that group yourself generally, or at least the idea is that, like, this seems like a good I mean, I'm not saying that you have to be able to put yourself in that group, but you are generally, when you're making a book about people you're supposed to like them and want to be buddy with them, sort of thing. Even if, like, if I met somebody in real life that was this person, it doesn't mean I would be best friends with them. It just would mean that maybe I would want to. I know I talk about her books all the time. Something just fell off my desk. Go off. But, like, Lucy Diamond books, a lot of her characters are middle-aged women, which is, you know, I also believe her target demographic. I am unlikely to fall into a friendship with most of the characters she writes because I am a 25-year-old man. It's unlikely that I am going to be besties with people my mother's age. Some of them are in their 30s, which is a bit more likely, but many of them are, like, mothers with a couple of kids. They've been married for 20 plus years. And yeah, I always want to be besties with these people. Whereas here, these are meant to be my peers. These are people in their mid-20s, from what I could gather. He's dropped out of college, so maybe he's a little bit younger than me. But he's still meant to be in his early 20s, at least. And I'm just like, these are meant to be my peers, and I just can't find myself with them. Like I said, not Nick. Weirdly, the oldest one there, who's like the mum friend of the group. But I think we should start getting a little bit more specific here. I know I've already mentioned the sort of saving them from death thing later on. That's kind of specific. But anyway, we have 3 people working at this restaurant. Brian, our lead, who is a werewolf. Nick, the manager, the mum friend of the group. And Darby, who's in the same job position as Brian. Now, Brian is clearly in a dark place, having moved away from his parents. He gets turned into a werewolf, and that means he has to drop out of college and move back in with his parents, and then things get stale with them because they're like well-to-do, proper suburban parents. I keep say parents one more time. And when he tells them what he is, it like I say, it becomes very stale. Sorry, I just like read that in a really weird order. So he moves out. He moves into, quote-unquote, the city. Very much like not giving anything away. My brain went to, for whatever reason, it went to very Seattle. It just seems like that kind of area. I don't know why that was the place my brain went to. But every time they said the city, my brain went, yeah, it's Seattle. I don't know what that says about me. The author is Tony Santorella, so there's a not 0% chance it's New York or somewhere in New York. Like, it's either New York City or somewhere in New York State. But, you know, for whatever reason, my brain said Seattle. But that doesn't matter. Like I say, it makes sense that he's not doing well and is keeping a level of distance between himself and his colleagues. But I do think it's very telling that he puts such a distance between people who clearly enjoy being around him, he clearly enjoys being around them, but quickly falls into an attachment with someone who intentionally lures him in. Like, there's no common ground between these two people beyond the fact that they're both werewolves. And that someone being Tyler, and he is an entrepreneur and life coach who's putting together a group of like-minded individuals straight away. Tyler is a walking set of red flags who immediately makes me think about covering my drink when I'm near him. Like, as soon as he talks, I'm just like, that's the point with him. He is very much like he's a trust fund baby with no idea of how the real world works, who just sort of does stuff with tech startups. He's got a big ego that becomes more and more fragile as the story goes on. He's very, like, I want to say, like, a very, Andrew Tate is the easiest person to compare him to. He's very much that kind of individual. They're very, like, be a real man. Whoa, exercise 50 million times a day. Put yourself through hell to become a real man. That sort of bullshit. And it's just like, he's not the most subtle character, but it is pretty bang on. And like I said, the subtlety in the book is like one of those things where I'm like, about it. I don't, like, he's a little more like the version of the men, of this kind of man that are on camera, maybe, than I think you would actually meet. You know, played up somewhat. But I think in the, like, some of the other subtlety issues I have are less with Tyler, because I think it's alright to make his character feel a bit bigger for the sake of a narrative, because we are reading a book. Like, you can have subtle characters and you can have big characters, and I think him being a bigger character speaks to him being that, like, he's supposed to be very charismatic, and I think to certain types of men that is charisma. Like, to me it's not. Like, Brian falls for it, and I wonder how, but maybe his kind of confidence works better on certain people. I do think cis men in particular fall for this kind of thing, and I guess I have no qualms in how masculine and manly I feel. For I, of course, am the most masculine, manly man in the entire universe. I am peak masculinity. Obviously, there is a fat cat in my bedroom. Hello, Zelda. What are you doing, babe? Hi. No, you can't get in the drawer. Close that. I had my drawer open where my mic was, and Zelda's currently trying to get in it. Hello, Pudding. You sniffing things? You doing a good job? It's fantastic work that you do. Oh, I'm getting sniffs now. Excellent beast. Wonderful. But yeah, I do think that it's very much like men who are trying to find themselves within masculinity, who are afraid of being anything but masculine, that fall for men like this, which is sad, really. But I will say, when he was pitching to Brian about the werewolf community he was claiming to start, and said, you would be getting in on the bottom floor, I was immediately like, oh, I watch enough anti-MLM content to know where this is going. This is some pyramid scheme shit. Cut to the last third of the story, where Tyler is trying to get Brian and another wolf that's with him to recruit 2 more people each, kind of thing. And I was like, I fucking knew it! And that was actually played pretty subtly. Like, I had no qualms with Brian spelling that one out to Tyler afterwards, where he's like, hey, this sounds like a pyramid scheme, this sounds like an MLM. Where other stuff I feel like could have been left out, or like made a bit more under the radar, that felt more like Brian suddenly realizing what was going on. Because, like, I have heard terms like that before and recognize what they actually are. So, like, when new multi-level market, so when I say MLM, I mean multi-level marketing scheme. I do not mean men who love men, which, I mean, is fitting for this book, I guess. But multi-level marketing schemes, when they start up, they say to the new recruits that are coming in, you're getting in on the ground floor, you're getting in on the bottom floor, because obviously you will then become the top of the pyramid when everybody else gets recruited. Because MLMs are totally not pyramid schemes, obviously. But then there's other stuff that, like, just leave it out a little bit. Leave it to the reader. Like, early on, he's complaining that his neighbourhood is gentrified. Fair enough. But we get, he inadvertently growls and bares his teeth at the folks ruining his neighbourhood. Assholes, he mutters under his breath, before diving into his favourite boutique cafe for a triple shot oat milk latte, turning up his music so he doesn't hear his own hypocrisy. Now, there's more to that passage and the whole lead up to it would have been so better served if you just cut out turning up his music so he doesn't hear his own hypocrisy. Cut it as he goes into the cafe for a triple latte thing, whatever. Because that tells us everything we need to know. And it's also funnier if you cut that bit out. Because, like I said, Santorella does jokes well. He has funny, especially, like, in full scenes of just awkward moments. He does that really well. But, like, that, it's funnier with less. And leaving it up to your audience to go, nice, I see what you did there. Do you know what I mean? Like, just trust them a bit more. And I know that is a nitpick, but, like, it's not the only moment where there is that sort of thing where you're like, your reader will get it. You know, you're fine. Like, it's established early on that Darby uses they, them pronouns, so we know that they don't fit into any kind of binary gender confines. Cool, super. We don't need them to go on to say the line when they're talking to Brian. I'll stop you right there, my cisgendered friend. First of all, because who talks like that? Maybe I'm being old about this. Like, maybe a baby trans or baby NB, because I know not every NB uses the term trans. But maybe the babies would use that. But even then, it just sounds so forced. Second of all, it's just redundant. It had nothing to do with the conversation they were having, by the way. Like, it established nothing we didn't know about Brian or Darby. I think had it been part of the conversation where they're like, there is a difference between them and it's not really tracking. It's like, I'll stop you right there, my cisgendered friend. Like, because I've had conversations with my friends who are cis and the rare few who are straight, where it's like, there are differences between us and we have that conversation and there's jokes about it and stuff. But, I don't know. And later, well, is that later? Or around the same sort of time? Darby starts seeing this older guy called Abe. First of all, Brian is continually rude to Abe for no real reason. Like, even early on in Brian's time with Tyler. So it's just like, we can't put it down to just that. And it's just like, that didn't exactly warm me to our lead. It was so needless. Like, a couple of jabs at the beginning because it's like, oh, he's quite old and like he doesn't look like your type and all that sort of thing. A couple of jabs here and there. Don't get me wrong, I joke with my friends and we would perhaps, if something came out of left field, like if one of my friends, like all my friends are most of my friends are about the same age as me, and suddenly they were dating somebody in their 60s, we would laugh about that at first, but eventually, like, that joke stops because it's not funny anymore. And then he starts getting annoyed about the fact that, oh, well, Abe's just there all of the time and he doesn't say anything. But it's like, he's getting annoyed that Abe is with their group, but he's always talking about, like, oh, actually, I'm keeping my distance with this group anyway and I can't become good friends with them, so why do you care? Like, really, really fucking annoying. But like I said, Abe is generally really quiet and he sort of does just exist with the group when they go out and he's always writing in his journal. And a little before halfway, I did start questioning what was going on with him a little more specifically, because it was like, okay, he's definitely sticking around, he's going to become somewhat important. I have 3 theories. One, that Brian was going to kill Abe because of his, like, there's something established where if on the day of the full moon, when you are still human, if somebody somebody makes you feel incredibly negative, you may well mark them so that when you're a wolf, you will find them and kill them. And it's quite a nice touch because, like I said, Brian is a waiter, so that works really nicely there. My second thought was that Abe knows, or at least suspects, what Brian is, and maybe Tyler as well, but especially Brian. And 3, I thought that Abe might be another werewolf trying to deal with whatever Tyler's doing. But I was like less sure about the third one. I definitely thought it was more likely to be 1 or 2, and I was right about 2. So that he knew, or at least suspected, what was going on. So we learned towards the end that when Brian is trying to make things up with Darby, we learned that Darby has been given a gun by Abe as like a sort of 6-month anniversary present. And it seems really weird, but it's sort of one of those things where it's like, I mean, Chekhov's gun is a thing for a reason. If you bring a gun up into it, it better be used by the end of the story, right? And during that final fight between Brian and Tyler, they're both in wolf form. Tyler gets shot, he's killed, and afterwards when they're trying to clean up the restaurant, Brian goes to pull a stray bullet out of the wall, and it burns him, quickly realising, oh, it's a silver bullet, going, oh, Abe knew what was going on, he's planned something. And here's the thing, I figured this out a little bit early because I am a big fat Dracula nerd. I fucking love that book. I love all the surrounding stuff around it. I love a lot of the films, even if a lot of them are questionable. God bless Keanu Reeves' dog shit accent. God bless. But something tickled the back of my head, and we had a... Whoop, sorry, I just dropped my phone, which I'm reading my script off. So we have a confirmation of knowledge with that silver bullet, but I started getting some more inklings about, like, oh, Abe definitely knows something when Darby's put on this before. They're like a performer in a bunch of various ways, and they put on this show and afterwards receive flowers from Abe, and it really Abe knows that Brian's going to be there, and Brian nearly chucks up and collapses when he's around these flowers. And he also, this didn't tickle anything for me until I was putting pieces together later on, but he wrote in his journal exclusively in Dutch, and something, when he picked up that silver bullet at the end, wait, hang on. Something's rattling around in my noggin here. So I did hop onto Google just to confirm my suspicions, and yes, Van Helsing from Dracula is called Abraham. Abraham, you get it. So we do learn early on as well that he is a florist, and after the final fight of the book, the silver bullet revelation happens. They head to his shop, which we learn is called VH Flowers. And I was genuinely like, that's really cool. Sweet little Easter egg type reference. And I literally said in my notes, don't spell it out any more than this, please. But no, instead, he is a literal descendant of Dracula's Van Helsing, and runs about finding and taking creatures down, sort of supernatural style. And the creature hunter expert thing was fine, cool, and it does make sense. It's really nice, and yeah, it leads into some sequel bait, which is, whatever. Like, it leads into the bait with, like, the trio that we've already established with Brian, Darby, and Nick. But it's just like, the revelation that he's an actual Van Helsing felt so cartoonish. I think had it just been left as a reference, it would have been fine, but actually making him a descendant, it just feels a little bit cheap. Like, having that moment for me to be able to go, and I'm sure many other readers who read horror would have gone, maybe put some pieces together before that and seen VH Flowers and gone, oh, that's really nice. That's like a nice little Easter egg. And I think it just cheapens it. And once again, it leads back into that thing of, like, subtlety sometimes works so much better, because that final scene is a little bit, in the way that Supernatural is, a little bit cartoonish at times. And that's fine, because horror as a genre is often a little bit cartoonish. And again, mostly because it's a little bit ridiculous. Not so much stuff that's like in the thriller area of things, but stuff that's anywhere near the supernatural, be that paranormal stuff with ghosts and ghouls, or like supernatural stuff with werewolves and vampires. It is a little bit daft, even if it's really good horror. Because, I don't know, it's just like, I think once you accept that all of it's a little bit mad, then I think everybody enjoys it more. And I think most people who are fans of horror are aware that it's a little bit ridiculous. But I think going, look, it's this character that you know from this other book, just feels a bit like, okay, right then. But I should also end on a positive. There were a couple of scenes that really got me. There's a hookup scene early on, which was really funny. It's nothing like, there's no real, it's not like a sex scene in terms of like descriptive or anything like that. This isn't suddenly like, there's a random smut scene in this. But it's really funny, and it's so cringe. Just like the Pomeranian trying to attack him because dogs don't like him, because he's a werewolf. Like, the little Pomeranian trying to attack him while Brian is, obviously doggy style, with the dog's owner. So the dog's owner doesn't know what's going on. Oh, it's so funny. And I think in particular, there's a chapter where Tyler and a bunch of his little yuppies are all out on a camping trip, and they do bring Brian along with them. And Tyler's girlfriend starts getting real buddy-buddy with Brian in that way that certain straight girls, I'm going to be honest, often really rich straight girls do, with, you know, the gays. In front of everyone else, she asks, starting with metaphors, but eventually just outright asking, oh, Brian, are you a top or bottom? Like, bear in mind, most of these people are basically complete strangers to him, and he calls her out on it because it is a fucking weird question to ask. And people always feel cool with asking, like, gay people and trans people about their bodies, about their sex lives, because it's, like, different, you know? And it's just like, you're weird. He basically asks if, like, she takes it up the ass. Because it's basically like, oh, what about you? Are you a top or bottom? Do you like it like this? And she suddenly realizes how, like, inappropriate that question is. But obviously, because she is a poor little white rich girl, she plays victim about it all, and everybody else is like, oh my god, you're awful for asking her this, even though she did exactly the same fucking thing. And it's so awkward, but it's such a good scene. It had me, like, physically curled up in my seat because it is so awkward, but I loved it. Secondhand embarrassment is very difficult to get right, and I think Santorella did a really good job at getting it so right here, because I was just like, oh, what, oh no, nah. But honestly, for me, this book was fine. I didn't have a bad time reading it, and it sparked a lot of thought for me as I've gone through. You can see that I've had to, like, piece my thoughts together as I've gone through the script, but it is a really good commentary on the way that men are being indoctrinated into, I will say, like, toxicity, and also about finding a place where you belong. They do, at the end, outright say that Brian has found his real pack, which it was kind of cringe, but I can't knock it too hard. I'm a grade A nitpicker and very aware of that, but, like, that's kind of what I'm supposed to do. It's, like I said, it's fine. I'm glad I've read it. I probably wouldn't read it again, and I don't know, it depends. I wouldn't read a sequel of this. I might be interested to see what else Santorella writes, to see if that might be for me. If he wrote something non-supernatural, I think I might be more into it. If he wrote something, like, really good, actually, like, just regular human life type stuff, I might be a bit more into it, because I think we'd be playing less with metaphors and stuff, and it's just stuff that's going on. So I would be curious to see what else he does. I'm not planning what's next just yet. I have an idea. I do have a bunch of options from my library because once again I have been borrowing things. I also have the sequel to something else I borrowed. No, sorry, something else I read earlier this year. I know what I said recently about sequels, but that book is still one of the best things I've read this year. Read for a long time, actually. It's such a good book. And I am so hyped about this sequel. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I also, like, if there's a third one, I probably wouldn't continue to go through with reviewing it, but I'm not sure about that yet. Like I said, I'm not... we'll see. We'll see what we're going. I think I have an idea of what I'm doing next. And you should be seeing that next week. Fingers crossed. It shouldn't take me too long to read these. It just depends how I do the... how long it takes me to script everything, because I do find scripting stuff with graphic novels and comics and manga and all that sort of stuff a little bit harder, because it's easier to pick apart text. It just is, for me at least. Obviously there are people who professionally review manga, graphic novels and comics and stuff. I deal with text a lot easier, but let me know what you've been reading recently, and let me know what you're reading that's getting you all warm and cozy heading into the festive season. Is there anything that you always read this time of year? I know a lot of people have their like comfort little winter warmer type books. Feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, feel free to put your notifications on, and all that other cringe shit I'm supposed to ask you to do in my videos. But most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you are watching this. Take care of yourself. Right.